Is this my sign that it's finally time to upgrade to the ARB heavy duty bumper? So I made a few posts about this on Instagram, but I haven't made like a dedicated YouTube video about this until now. But yes, as the title suggests, my brand new 2024 Tacoma did in fact get rear-ended, which is such a bummer because it's so spanking brand new. It's this truck that I'm sitting in the bed of right now, and at the time of this incident, I had had this truck for less than 2 months. It still had and still has that new car smell, and it's like I'm already bringing it in for something. So obviously in this video, I'm going to tell you guys everything that happened. I even have dash cam footage of the whole incident, so I'll be showing you that. I'll show you guys the estimate on the damage for this truck, and I'll share my experience about the insurance aftermath because that all was very interesting. It has been a long time since I've gone through insurance to get something done. I think the last time and the only time I've ever gone through insurance with regards to like a car accident was back when I was in college years ago with my other silver 2019 truck. Someone hit and run on that thing, but it had been a while, so navigating all of that was really interesting. But one of the big reasons I wanted to make this video is because I'm actually interested in getting your guys' feedback about what I should do next. I'm kind of at a crossroads. I mean, I have an idea of what I think I should do next, but I really do want to get your guys' input. So yeah, I'll be really interested to see the comment section of this particular video. So for context, if you're new to the channel, I had not so long ago posted the video purchasing this new truck from Toyota Carlsbad. I was super stoked. I really had barely driven this truck. Like I think at the time I got hit, I was at either 400 or 500 miles. I had taken it to work like 1 or 2 times, a handful of times to the gym. I also took it to one of my friend's house to show him, you know, my new truck, but really that was about it. I had barely driven this truck. And actually for a few weeks before everything happened, this truck sat in San Diego because I was out in Colorado doing a really awesome trip, which by the way, there's going to be a whole Colorado off-road video with some new Tacomas and Land Cruisers. That was a really cool adventure, but while I was out in Colorado, I didn't have my truck out there, so it just stayed home here. And when I got back from that trip, it had been a really long time since I had seen this truck, so I was really excited to, you know, get back in it, drive it, actually start enjoying it and using it. So literally, it was the very first time since I hadn't seen it in a while of me driving it when this all happened. It was the Friday before Labor Day weekend, so kind of on me for picking a really busy day, and the time I was driving was also like kind of rush hour time, but rush hour is starting to slow down a little bit. So I had Cody with me. He was sitting in the back seat like he always does. We were driving up the 15 North, and yes, it was a little bit crowded. There was definitely some traffic, like I mentioned, but the way I would describe the traffic was it was very like stop and go. It wasn't like the freeway was moving and all of a sudden there was like one big stop. So I just remember every time I kind of had to come to a stop because the car in front of me was stopping, I wasn't decelerating super quickly or super rapidly. You know, when you're on the freeway and you come to one of those stops, how it's always really scary and you always kind of like look back in your rearview mirror because you want to make sure the person behind you doesn't hit you. Well, it wasn't that kind of stopping. It was relatively like slow. So I just wasn't looking in my rearview mirror because I honestly wasn't really worried about that. So yeah, I feel like I was braking very mildly, coming to a nice clean stop. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, boom, I just feel this giant thud. When it all happened, my head and neck thankfully didn't whiplash. Honestly, I don't think I felt my body really move or anything. The hit itself like felt very solid. It felt like the truck really absorbed a lot of the hit. And at the time, you know, I'm normally listening to music in my truck, but for some reason, I don't know why, I just wasn't listening to music. So I was sitting basically in completely dead silence. So it was very ominous when it happened. And again, it was kind of shocking because I didn't see it coming. So I was kind of stunned by the whole thing, to be honest with you guys. So I was like, crap, I need to get over like 4 lanes to the right because I was in the very left lane, which I feel like, sorry, I'm like explaining all of my choices here and why I was doing what, but I don't know, I'm just like remembering everything that happened and trying to give you guys as much detail as possible. I normally don't drive in the left lane, but the area I was in, you have to stay left to stay on the 15 because I think there's like another highway if you stay in the right lanes, and all the lanes except for the very left lane merged together. So I felt like the left lane was the safest. So I immediately turn on my hazards. I'm trying to get over to the right. Cody now has started to whine because he's picked up that something odd has happened, or I don't know if I said anything. And in the back of my head the whole time, I'm like, crap, I hope this guy is gonna pull over with me, because like I said, the only other time I've been hit before was a hit and run. So like, I don't know, if he wanted to run, there was an easy exit with like the carpool lanes that were to the left. But thankfully I did start to see him pull over with me. Now I wish my dash cam that is 100% capable of recording audio was actually recording audio, but I had turned it on to mute because that increases, recording space. But this is just a good time in this video to plug having a dash cam in your vehicle, no matter what vehicle you drive. I feel so lucky that a couple weeks before I left for Colorado in this truck, I don't know if you guys watched my first mods video I did on my 2024 Tacoma, but one of those modifications, it might have even been the first mod, was installing a dash cam. The one that you're seeing footage of, or that was in my truck at the time of the accident, if you're curious, is a Garmin Mini, which Garmin now doesn't sell anymore. They're on to the Mini 2. But I have a super clean setup with how my dash cam is wired up using a dongle adapter that takes power from the rearview mirror. You can see that the dash cam footage isn't like stellar or amazing, but it's good enough. The Garmin Mini is a 1080p, and that specific dash cam I've had for more than 4 years now, and it's been treating me so well. I haven't had any issues with it. But the only thing I kind of regret is that I had my Vantrue dash cam. That one is a little bit better because it actually records in 4K and it has a rear facing camera too. After this whole thing, I have a new dash cam on order that's going to replace the Mini that's a little bit more full featured, so definitely stay tuned for that video on the channel. But back to the story. As I'm pulling over, I realized the guy that hit me was driving a Civic, so I'm like, okay, at least he was driving a very small vehicle relative to my vehicle, but still in my head, I was preparing myself as I walked out of my truck and started to look at the rear for the absolute worst. I thankfully have never been in a giant car accident, so I don't know what that feels like. So I really didn't have an idea of what I was going to see back there. And I was quite surprised to see everything on my truck fully intact. Considering what it sounded like to me, and again, I don't really have experience with this, the damage was really not that bad. On my truck, that is. So as you guys can see, this is what I was looking at, which appears very minimal. The area with the most visible damage though is right here, where these scratches are actually imprints of where the front H Honda logo on the Civic made contact with my truck. It doesn't look too bad from here, but up close, unfortunately, this indented and actually impressed into the textured material, so they will not come out. I noticed a few other minor scratches, as well as a little bit of chipped paint on the driver painted bumper cap. Now the hit wasn't just to the body panels on my bumper, unfortunately. He contacted my hitch, which is connected to this rear subframe crossmember behind the plastic. On my new Tacoma, this is the structural piece that's connected to the receiver hitch that took most of the hit. I haven't gotten the truck looked at yet, but this thing looks unfazed. I mean, it's fully boxed. It's like welded to the frame. I think on my 3rd gen, this piece is bolted on. But regardless, overall, really, I think nothing much except for minor cosmetic damage. And we're really lucky because things could have been much worse. On his end, I consider things to be worse. There's that broken Honda emblem and a square crack from my hitch. You can't really tell from this picture, but the entire front bumper piece actually unclipped from his car too. So who is the driver of the Civic? Well, I'm obviously not going to reveal his entire identity because I think that would be, kind of wrong and everything. But he was about my age. I think he was a year older than me when I looked at his driver's license, which thankfully he had a driver's license. And when he's getting out of his car, I hear him, he's already on his phone, speakerphone, telling somebody, hey, sorry, I'm going to be late to the concert. Go get food without me. And this is one of those moments where you're a little irritated, you're starting to get that pent up anger, and you're just really want to give someone an earful because you just hit my truck and you're freaking on your phone. But you know what? I'm here by myself, well, with Cody, and I have no idea who this guy is, what he's capable of, what he has. We're on the side of the road, and the best thing to do is just handle the situation, make sure no one got hurt, and, you know, just take care of things. Thankfully, as angry as I was, I'm glad that he didn't get hurt. Everything was good there except for, you know, my crushed spirit. But anyways, while he's on the phone, the first thing he says to me is, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I was trying to avoid somebody and I just didn't see your brake lights, and, you know, I tried to stop in time, I couldn't stop, and I hit you, sorry." But like, as I'm taking a picture of his insurance information, he's like, "You know, I have a guy that can take that dent out super easy, super cheap. He could repaint that hitch for you." And in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my God. Look, I'm not trying to judge a book by its cover, but based on the interaction I have with him and the way he was talking, I just feel like it's very, very likely that this guy was on his phone distracted, and that's why he hit me. Which, guys, when you're driving, there is absolutely no need to be on your phone. Even if there's not a lot of traffic, there's not a lot of cars around you, you never know what you might encounter. If I need to text, I am just using, you know, Siri. I'm saying, "Hey Siri, send a text to whoever," or I just call the person. And while I'm driving, there's also a feature, at least on my iPhone, that I can turn on Do Not Disturb while I'm driving. So I have that on. I get absolutely zero notifications when I'm driving on the road, and I'm not seeing whoever in your contacts. That scared me because I said, you know, the keywords. I know it's kind of extreme, and I'm not suggesting that everyone go out there and do that on their phone, because I know some people need to get notifications, phone calls, whatever, while they're driving, while they're in the car. But point being, just like, do not look down at your phone while you're driving. So anyways, while we were stopped, I took as many pictures as I could of my truck, of his vehicles, and tried to document everything I could. I was worried about the sensors, but visually they were intact, which was really good. And as I was starting to drive off, I kind of tried to see if my truck was driving straight. I was, you know, potentially worried that there could be frame damage, even though the hit relatively didn't look that bad, but it seemed like the truck was driving pretty straight, so wasn't too worried there. And then also, when I stopped, I tried to make sure my tailgate would open properly. I have this truck which has the power up and down tailgate, and I feel like just through like my own experience with this tailgate, even though I haven't used it a bunch, it's not very forgiving if you know, move it in the wrong way. Like, the power feature will kind of like stop halfway in between. So any sort of hit, I feel like that would misalign it in any sort of way would cause it to fault. But thankfully, it has been opening and closing completely fine. It doesn't look like there's any misalignment. So I was pretty stoked about that, because that could have been really annoying to fix. So the aftermath. When I got home, the first person, who did I call? My dad. That's what dads are for, right? So I call him and I tell him the whole situation. And I'm like, "Dad, I just got hit on the freeway. The guy had insurance. You know, what do I do?" Because insurance is like, you know, the proper way, but also, if I go through insurance, even though this all wasn't my fault, and this was all, you know, I think at this point, relatively minor, there's going to be a minor accident reported on the Carfax. And even though I don't have any plans or future plans to sell this truck, you know, if I ever do, that's definitely going to lower the resale value, which, like, insurance doesn't pay out for that extra difference. But what my dad told me was just go through insurance. I mean, you don't know the guy. Maybe he'll pay you up front if you get an estimate somewhere, but down the line, if they find you have more damage, you know, he might not be willing to pay. He might not want to pay for OEM parts, you know. It sucks what happened, but that was his recommendation. So I thought about it and I decided to follow his advice. So I actually called AAA, my own insurance, which I know that's kind of weird because if you're not at fault, typically you go after the other person's insurance. But what is nice about AAA is that you can file a claim through them and they will take care of the whole thing for you. And my family's had really good experiences with AAA, so I felt pretty comfortable doing this. This, you know, by the way, is not sponsored by AAA at all. I'm just glad that they're pretty proactive when it comes to stuff like this. But I got on the phone with an agent or someone handling my case, and he right away, without even seeing the dash cam footage, was like, "You're not going to be at fault. We're not going to raise your insurance," which was good. And he said, you know, "You're more than welcome to go after their insurance yourself, or you can file a claim with us and we'll handle it. We'll contact their insurance, and then they'll probably contact you at some point for like verification, but we'll basically facilitate like the whole thing. Basically, I didn't have to pay out of pocket. The whole process would be handled for me. It would just, take a little bit of a longer time. I don't know, maybe this is a decision that a lot of you guys wouldn't have come up with because, of the whole record of the accident sort of situation. But I just bit the bullet and decided that this is what I was gonna do. So basically what happened was they told me the following week to go to a collision center. AAA has like a bunch of verified ones, and I definitely wanted to go to a Toyota service center because the truck's so new. So really the only people that are experienced with body work, I feel like, are going to be the Toyota service centers at this point. So I decided to take it to Toyota Carlsbad. They looked at it and gave me an estimate. I am very glad I took it in because they actually spotted more things that I didn't originally notice, like on the passenger bumper cap, this little dent. I've got the estimate pulled up here on my phone that AAA sent a copy of to me, but the estimate total price for the damage, which includes parts and also labor that Toyota Carlsbad came up with, was $1,298.44. I had no idea what number I was expecting in my head. I think I was expecting around like, the $2,000 range, but I wasn't sure because none of the sensors were actually broken. And I know those are the expensive parts, but I didn't know how expensive labor was going to be to replace those parts. And that being said, I don't know if they're underestimating or overestimating. I don't know if they have incentive to go either way, or if this is just like genuinely close to like market value. I'll like quickly go through all the parts that they had listed on, but the main part was, that big plastic piece that goes all the way across. That's where that Honda logo is branded in. There's also that left painted bumper cap. There's like a clip associated with that, some other extension clip, and then a parking sensor. I don't know. And then it looks like there's like two brackets, a right and a left parking sensor bracket. So yeah, according to Toyota Carlsbad, from the initial estimate, they looked at it and they just said it just looks all cosmetic, which is good. I am very happy that they think that there isn't any frame damage. But to be double safe, I might also take it into another body shop, like for a second opinion, second look. I've been working on my 2017 Tacoma front end conversion project. I don't know if you guys have been watching the series, but I've been working with an auto body shop here in San Diego, Goldcrest Auto Body, and Vinny there is so great. So I might take this truck to him just so he could take a look at the whole thing and make sure, nothing else is getting missed. I mean, I don't have qualified eyes to look at that stuff, but I feel very confident based on the looks of it and, what the initial estimate that Toyota Carlsbad gave me, that there really isn't any other damage except for body panel damage. Okay, so now what next? This is actually the part of the video where I want to ask you guys what you think I should do, because I have several different options I can go with here. So I think, the most obvious thing I can have done is just go through this body shop and have them fix the damages, have his insurance pay for it, and then, call it a day. My truck would obviously be in the shop for a few days, but that's pretty much it. But the other option is I could take the money, and I verified this with my AAA guy, but he says I could cash out. Well, once they're finished, fighting it out with the other insurance, I think they're still kind of trying to figure out what having, insurance like takes literally forever. But that would probably be somewhere around the estimate, which I guess is like $1,300, and use that money towards a different rear bumper, as I was mentioning earlier in the video. I think this might be my excuse to finally get the OEM one that Toyota sells specifically for the 4th generation Tacoma and is made by ARB. This is the one that comes standard on the Trail Hunter Tacomas and the TRD Pro Tacomas. I just love that rear bumper, and actually from the start, I had plans to put that bumper on. I was trying to order this truck, or at least when I had an allocation for this truck, see if I could get that rear bumper, but it just wasn't available at the time. But the bumper at some point has got to get fixed because I don't want to be driving around with that Honda logo stamped in the back. It's going to come off. So the question is, what bumper should go back on. Maybe the universe is sending me a signal that this is the time for me to get that ARB bumper. But I don't know, I'm just curious to see what you guys think. As much as I do want to go this route, one thing that is holding me back is if, I'm installing the bumper myself, or even if someone else is installing the ARB bumper, I find out that down the line there's more damage than I expected. That would really suck. But I think, and I have to double check this with my insurance, I have up to 6 months to like a year to report any extra damages I find when repairing the bumper, repairing meaning adding the other new bumper. So I feel like I would still technically be covered for any potential damages that I could encounter. So yeah, I'm really interested to hearing your guys' feedback on all this. I'm not really trying to profit out here. I'm not going to sue the guy. I'm not trying to squeeze every single dollar out of insurance. I would just like to be compensated for what I feel is fair. And it just might be a convenient time for all of this to put on the ARB rear bumper. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. So that's my unfortunate story for the video. This is where I'm at, but I also wanted to kind of take a moment and reflect here a bit. I just have a lot of pride when it comes to my vehicles because I really do put a lot of effort and time and blood, sweat, and tears into just taking care of them in general. So when something happens, it definitely sucks a lot. But, when it's something that is self-inflicted, like the other day I was on Santa Isabel truck trail and I picked a very bad line stupidly because I had gone over the section right before, but I was just dumb, picked a really bad line, scraped up my rear diff, lower control arm, a trailing arm too. That obviously I was like, oh man, but it doesn't feel that bad because I did it myself. But when it's somebody else, especially, a stranger, and especially someone who you feel like is careless, that is the worst. My friend Brian messaged me after I posted on Instagram about the whole thing that happened, and he mentioned that his Land Cruiser 200, when it got hit, which really sucks. I mean, if I had a Land Cruiser 200 and somebody rear-ended me, I can imagine I would feel pretty infuriated too. But the one thing that he said that stood out to me is, you really just kind of feel violated about the whole thing. And that, yes, 100% is how I felt. Somebody hit your brand new baby. But here's the thing. I told myself, okay, you're going to be sad for a couple hours, but after that, we're going to get over this. It's legitimately not useful and unhealthy to waste any more mental energy stressing or being sad about this. And this is just life, and life is unfair. And honestly, as sucky and as mean as this is going to sound, this is definitely not the worst thing in my life that is going to happen. Like, so many far worse things are going to happen relative to this incident. Me and my dog were okay. The other guy was okay. My truck's eventually going to get fixed. Even just like reading a lot of your guys' comments when I posted about this on my Instagram stories. Like, so many people go through the exact same thing. They bought a brand new vehicle, 200 miles in, somebody hits them, somebody T-bones them. I think someone even commented that they were on a test drive at the dealership with their vehicle and somebody hit them while they were on that test drive before they had even bought the car. Point is, with vehicles, sadly, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. As cliche as it sounds, you could do everything in your power to mitigate risk as best you can, which you definitely should, but if something happens, really, it's all about how you react and take care of it. So those are all my unsolicited thoughts, if you guys even cared. I still am stoked about my trucks and with this truck, and yes, I will still be making lots of videos where I am super excited about this. I will keep you guys updated on the situation, but yeah, all I wanted to say was after this whole experience, you know what? It's not worth crying over spilled milk.